Hello and welcome to this special World Agri-Tech webinar, where we'll be discussing the new innovation challenge that we have set for agtech startups in partnership with Syngenta. I'm Jenny Moss, I'm the founder of Rethink Events and the World Agri-Tech series, and I'm joined today by Jacqui Campbell, Global Head of Technology and Operations for Biologicals at Syngenta Crop Protection, and Stuart Harrison, Head of R&D Partnerships and Open Innovation at Syngenta Seeds. The goal of the World Agri-Tech Summits has always been to accelerate the commercialization and scale-up of new technologies that help farmers to increase their yields in a resource-efficient, environmentally sustainable way. We aim to connect innovative startups with partners who can provide the capital, expertise, and market access they need to scale their solutions. So, finding the right partners is critical. The startup and corporate need to be aligned in their vision and to bring complementary skills to the table. That's why this year we've taken a fresh approach to our technology scouting, working in partnership with global corporations to identify a specific technology gap and asking startups to present a range of potential solutions to that challenge. We're asking startups to apply the challenge via our website, and the top 3 for each challenge will be invited to present their solution at the World Agri-Tech Innovation Summit on September the 28th to the 29th. Today, we're going to hear from Syngenta on the most critical trend the agriculture industry and how that's shaping their approach to innovation and investment. We'll talk a little bit about how they work with startups and what they look for in a partnership. And we'll talk in detail about the specific challenge they've set, why it's a priority for them in 2021 and the outcomes they'd like to see from this process. We'll wrap up by taking questions from the audience, so please start sending in your questions now. So, welcome Jacqui and welcome Stuart. Hi there. So, first of all, let's talk a little bit to this challenge, the key themes that you've seen emerge in the agtech space over the past year, and specifically why you've set today's challenge. Jacqui, perhaps you'd like to kick off.
Thanks, Jenny. And just to say, we're super excited about sponsoring this innovation challenge with the World Agri-Tech. Climate change, it's been on everybody's agenda for some time, how it impacts agriculture and productivity in agriculture. As we look forward, we don't see things getting any better. We see the food production system under pressure as we see the environmental impacts. And really that drives us to look for new technologies. How can we make crops more resilient to climate changes? And how can we bring technologies that have a positive impact to crop productivity for sustainable food production as we look forward?
Fantastic. And Stuart, I mean, how do you see that specifically translating into agtech?
Thanks, Jenny. What we're seeing recently is a significant expansion of companies with a focus in some form into regenerative ag, as well as a significant amount of investment in this space, not only from corporations, but also in the startup space. And this is really impressive. So in addition, what we're seeing is the traditional ag ecosystem is beginning to innovate in this space, but we're also starting to see non-traditional sciences coming into the space, as we're seeing the convergence of both biological, mathematical, and physical sciences trying to address these problems and bringing new innovations to the grower. Tools and technologies for sustainable production and land management is a really big theme in this space. We're seeing a lot of companies in that space. So we're excited to see what opportunities emerge as we move through this innovation challenge.
Great. And I mean, moving on to sort of, the theme of regenerative agriculture, we're seeing everyone from small farms to major CPG companies, including General Mills, PepsiCo, Unilever, Danone, getting involved with regenerative agriculture and setting out new strategies around sourcing. Why do you think regenerative ag has become such a buzzword in farming in 2021? What's changed this year? And how do you see it kind of defined as opposed to sustainable farming? Perhaps Jacqui, what do you think on that?
Yeah, well, as we think to climate change, greenhouse gases have been long linked to climate change. And some of the large corporations, such as those that you mentioned, are looking to reduce their carbon footprint and have a positive environmental impact from their operations. And so they're looking to offset their own carbon footprint in some cases by buying carbon credits. So we see carbon credit markets opening up now in agriculture, and that creates a pool for new innovations, and those tend to be aligned with regenerative agriculture. We also see policies such as the EU Green Deal and the Farm to Fork initiative in Europe, where they're setting targets for reducing crop inputs. And again, that's driving the opportunities to bring new innovation to maintain or improve crop productivity as the traditional inputs become more and more restricted. And then let's not forget consumers. We're all more aware of where our food is coming from, how it's produced. And as consumers, we're putting demands on the value chain to have a better environmental impact. So all of this adds up to really creating space for new technology, new innovations to really come and deliver sort of performance while being more environmentally good for the world and the future of food production.
Thanks. No, it definitely feels like a really exciting space and something that I think a lot of startups are looking to engage with. Stuart, I mean, what does it mean for Syngenta and how are you addressing that?
So Syngenta is a major corporation. We really have a responsibility of developing solutions that deliver on the potential of regenerative ag. But if you actually look outside, there's quite a lot of interchangeability in the use of regenerative and sustainability. So within Syngenta, we see sustainability as maintaining the land in its current format. But if you actually look outside, there's quite a significant amount of degraded farmland. That's all over. I remember visiting growers in eastern North Carolina, so east of where I am at the moment, where there was significant land degradation, and we're seeing farmers developing their own solutions in order to improve the land quality. So if you look at regenerative, however, what we're wanting to see with regenerative ag is putting practices in place which improve the condition of this deteriorated land and improve the land productivity overall. And this is really an area where there probably has been less innovation in the past, but we are seeing an increase in this both within academics as well as in corporations and startups.
Yeah, and of course the whole premise behind regenerative agriculture is that it benefits farmers through the health of their soil, the need to use less fertilizer and other treatments. What do you see as the greatest incentive for farmers to invest in products and solutions that improve the health of their soils? How can we drive new and increased revenue streams for farmers? And I guess how can we communicate the ROI in terms of investing in these products around regenerative ag?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, many farms are multi-generational, and I think for the farmer to be able to hand over his land to the next generation in a better condition and more productive than when he took it over or she took it over, I think is something that is important. With anything a farmer does, return on investment is really a big driver of adoption. Healthy soil is really important for productivity. There's a direct correlation there. So putting practices in place that drive the health of the soil, which drives the productivity of the land, the farmer should see a good return on investment. Thinking about, how that can be enabled, because it does mean a change in practice. And making sure that changing practices doesn't mean a drop-off in productivity or a drop-off in terms of overall profitability. I think data can really help there. Being able to kind of understand where inputs are needed, the right amount of inputs, and that can really be a big part of the case for change, really understanding what is needed in individual parcels of land and being able to go deeper than maybe you can without the new technologies that are enabling that microscopic view of the farm. And then, of course, as I mentioned, we see carbon markets now emerging and big corporations really looking to buy carbon credits from agriculture now as well. And this can be a catalyst, that can be a pull to actually change practices, because the farmer has another potential revenue stream, the so-called carbon crop. So that can be a real pull driver as well.
Fantastic. And of course, Syngenta has its own initiative, the Good Growth Plan. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about that and how that supports your goals.
Sure. The Good Growth Plan has been running for a number of years now. And the Good Growth Ram itself is really trying to put climate change and biodiversity loss at the heart of productivity of farming in the future. The farmers that we work with, they're the first to suffer from extreme weather, and agriculture is going to play a real pivotal role in the fight against climate change. We've made a number of global commitments to reduce agriculture carbon footprint and to help farmers deal with the extreme weather patterns caused by climate change. And this is a big focus of our product development within Syngenta. We want to help farmers address the challenges with these new technologies and services. And this is not only to mitigate, but also to adapt to the effects of climate change. So how do we make crops and products that allow a more resilient productivity of farms in the future?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic. And obviously Syngenta has a huge amount of its own initiatives going on, but you also collaborate with startups. So perhaps you could tell me a little bit more about what that looks like, how you approach collaboration with startups.
Yeah, it's amazing to think that the amount of R&D investment going into agriculture through venture-funded R&D in startups is actually at least and probably a lot more than what the major R&D companies in agriculture are spending collectively. So huge amount of innovation going on outside the walls of the big ag R&D companies. At Syngenta, we believe tapping into that ecosystem, not only the startup space, but also more broadly in terms of external innovation, thinking about universities and research institutes. It's really important to keep abreast of technology advances and really identify those technologies that we can bring to the benefit of the grower and to the benefit of agriculture in general. But Stuart, I mean, a key part of your role is really sort of setting up these types of collaborations. So maybe you could talk a bit more about how we do it in Syngenta.
Sure. Yeah, my entire day job is looking outside, and it's an exciting space at the moment with the evolution of rapid evolution of sciences that are now moving into the ag space. If we look at the Syngenta group more broadly, we have a number of touch points with startups, and this is across all of our 4 business units. Firstly, we have the Syngenta Group Ventures team that are located both in the US and Europe, and they actually make equity investments in startups, and this covers the full scope of Syngenta's 4 business units. Then if we look at our R&D organization, we see startups as a critical part of our product development process, and we work with startups to accelerate the development of technologies to bring into the hands of growers. We find generally that the startups are incredibly agile and very innovative, so working with them also has a positive impact on our R&D organization from an innovation perspective. And finally, our commercial teams also work with startups where we actually explore multiple business opportunities together. So if you sum all of this up, Syngenta sees the startup ecosystem as a critical part of bringing new and rapid innovation and change into the hands of growers to make them more productive and to deal with the challenges that they face every day.
Great. And of course, that leads us perfectly on then to look at the specific innovation challenge that Syngenta has set for startups. So I think this would be a great point for you to tell us exactly what the challenge is for this year and what you're looking for. Jacqui, over to you first.
Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, so we're looking for technologies that really help growers farm sustainably and regenerate their land. We recognise that for any problem that you want to solve, there's going to be multiple solutions. And so we've gone broad with this challenge on purpose because, we believe that there are more than one way to solve many of the problems out there and address many of the opportunities that are coming with regenerative agriculture. Obviously, we need to keep in mind as we're looking at the different options, we need to deliver on performance. So the grower will only adapt to new technologies and adopt them if he gets that performance and return on investment. So Stuart, maybe you could be a bit more specific about some of the areas that we're really hopefully getting some great entries.
Yeah. Now, in the space, one thing that is clear is nobody has all the answers. So looking as broad as we can across different technology solutions to address some of the challenges in the regenerative ag space is really important. Within this challenge, what we're looking for is both biological solutions as well as technologies in and around the seed that can deliver on plant and soil health benefits. So how do we actually continue to improve and make plants more resilient and also improve the soil while we're doing it? How can we reduce the need for fertilizer inputs? And we know there's a lot of people working on that space out there, and generally contribute to regenerative ag practices. As Jacqui said, we've gone broad on this because we're not sure what technologies can necessarily address these problems. So we're interested in collaborating with the external innovation community to work out how together we can contribute to this. So we really are looking forward to receiving a lot of entries and seeing what innovative solutions are out there that can address this challenge.
Fantastic. I mean, if there's any startups out there listening to this and thinking, well, I've absolutely got the answer to that, then please head to our website at worldagritechinnovation.com and submit your application. There's a lot more detail on the website on the challenge and how to submit the application form. We'll be selecting a shortlist of 3 for the challenge, and those companies will be invited to pitch their solution to Jacqui and Stuart and their respective teams in front of an international audience at the World Agri-Tech Summit this September. Now, we have time for a few questions, and we've had some great questions coming in both before the webinar and over the last few minutes. So let me move on to a few of them. Firstly, a question coming in from Nathaniel Jackson at True Algae. What are the key gaps in the biologicals product landscape that you're currently seeing?
I think there's a lot of opportunity for biologicals in agriculture. Today, what we see in terms of the technologies that are on the market, when you look to biocontrols, the level of efficacy that you can really achieve is maybe only 60% today for most of the solutions. And so from an innovation point of view, you know, like how can we get that more on par with chemistry? And I'm aware that there's many startups working in that space, and there's some exciting technology emerging. So that's one of the gaps that we need to close, is on the performance side. I think there's also new areas. So when you look to regenerative agriculture, soil health being more at the forefront of people's mind, that opens up a whole new area, being able to replace synthetic fertilizer and make all of the crop inputs more efficient. So I think it's really truly an exciting space to be working in at the moment. Yeah.
Great. And another question from Natarajan Balahanda at AgBio, specifically, how do you see the market for bioherbicides developing?
So I would say that there's huge demand. We don't see, obviously there are bioherbicides, the perigonic acids, etc., on the market today. Typically they're not cost effective for, you know, like broad adoption in row crops, for example. If we could find bioherbicide solutions that were cost effective as well as giving the efficacy, that would be a huge opportunity for biologicals. So anybody that's got any out there, please get in touch for sure.
Great. Another question asked by a consultant called Stephen. Biological controls primarily in intensive cropping. How does Syngenta see the potential and feasibility for extensive commodity crops?
Yeah, and I think they've been broadly adopted in the kind of fruit, vegetables, specialty crop markets, oftentimes to manage the residues, particularly in the fresh produce area, but also that's where we see more restrictions in terms of the chemistry that's available. So it's not surprising that biologicals really have a good solid market in that area. I think there is potential for biologicals in row crops, and we're excited about what we can do there. Cost obviously has to be a driver, as well as efficacy, and it has to really fit into the sort of crop management system and deliver the productivity and the quality that the growers are expecting. So, as I mentioned earlier, I think there's a lot of opportunity for innovation in that space. And hopefully we see more and more adoption in those row crops as we look forward.
Great, thanks, Jacqui. Now a slightly different question from Matt Coble at Dropcopter. What opportunities do you see in the upcoming years around pollination technology?
Okay, I'll jump in and grab that one. So we're seeing a number of, or have seen a number of startups both in Europe and North America developing pollination technology. So the ability to improve the efficiency of seed production through pollination technology, or even the potential for increasing grain yield through pollination technology is an opportunity. This needs to be a biological and machinery collaboration, because there's a lot of components that need to fall into there, but the ability for these companies to improve the efficiency, and therefore less land is required to produce the same amount, is definitely an opportunity that has benefits as we move forward, both in terms of farm efficiency, but also land use.
Great. Thanks, Stuart. Perhaps another one for you. Can you quantify the move towards non-chemical or organic seed production?
I won't quantify it, but we are actually seeing we're seeing a demand for organic grain production, and that whether or not that's corn and soy going into the production of organic poultry, etc. So there is that growing market within a number of areas, and the ability to efficiently produce organic seed, I think, is an area that needs a little bit of focus from an innovation point of view.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then a question that's come in from Brian Watty at Lucent Biosciences. Have you ever worked with micronutrient coatings or primings with seeds? And what about in the category of biologicals?
Yeah, so we do have our seed care business is definitely they have inoculants in the portfolio, and we do have definite interest in terms of biological seed coatings that can improve plant and soil health, and also help the assimilation of nutrients by the plants. So it's definitely an area of interest.
Great. Another question here from Robert Schmidt-Voltus, specifically on variable rate prescription. Many leading digital agriculture companies are offering farmers tools to make their own variable rate prescriptions, but not many are actually providing recommendations on the amount, timing, and distribution of inputs. Why do you think that is?
I think my answer really all comes down to agronomy, and you have to have the agronomy knowledge. Mm-hmm. And this is where, you know, the adoption of these types of practices, you do need close collaborations, and you need to understand how the crops are being managed and what's needed, where and when, to be able to give that advice.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And then, of course, a question that comes up a number of times as well is obviously smallholder farmers, and with 80% of food production coming from smaller growers, how can we accelerate the adoption of digital technologies, but also other more advanced ag-tech solutions among the smallholder farmer community?
Okay, I'll jump in on that one. So if we look at the Asia Pacific area, the adoption of mobile technology generally across the population is relatively high. So the ability to be able to reach growers with knowledge, information, products, etc., through a mobile platform is beneficial. A lot of these groups are also on social media. So how do you actually combine mobile platform adoption as well as social media in order to be able to reach these growers? And it's going to differ depending on the different countries, but the mobile route is definitely a huge opportunity in the Asia Pacific space.
Fantastic. And I suppose for startups, one of the key challenges is accessing farmers. So, you know, what does a partnership or a collaboration with Syngenta offer a startup that's potentially trying to access this market?
I think sorry, Stuart.
No, go ahead, Jacqui.
I think we can look at that on multiple levels. So we see startups coming with very innovative technology, and where companies like Syngenta have the depth as well as the breadth, thinking about our development capabilities, so being able to trial technologies in multiple countries around the world, but also, you know, thinking about, you know, where are we selling products, and with such a big global company, market access, and you know, being able to go faster and really get your technology adopted much more rapidly, I think is a real opportunity.
Great, fantastic. And then I guess moving on to the startup challenge, one of the questions that has come up, I know, Stuart, you touched on how Syngenta works with startups a little bit earlier, but maybe could you possibly expand on that? I think one of the questions that's just come in is, does Syngenta have a specific startup accelerator, or perhaps you could just kind of tell us a little bit more about your startup engagement?
So if we look at the startup engagement, we don't have a per se an accelerator internally in Syngenta, but we do collaborate quite a lot with the startup community, and this is frequently a joint interaction between the R&D organization and the venture team, where our R&D organization gets introduced to a lot of the startups that our venture team meet, and where they match the startups match the overall goals of Syngenta's R&D organization. We look for ways to work with them, and we know that working with a startup is very different from working with an academic institution, and it's a skill that we're continuing to evolve. But we do work with startups across all of our business units, heavily into crop protection and seeds primarily. And we work with them just to both accelerate their goals as well as enhance our product offerings as well.
Okay, fantastic. And then I guess another question that's come up is whether you have any advice for the startup. So if you're a startup looking to apply for this challenge or looking to work with a corporate, what advice would you give? Or are there any mistakes you see startups making that you can kind of warn others about and encourage them to put their best foot forward?
I think maybe if I start, and Stuart, you can jump in after. I think being realistic, so not overselling what you have to offer. Many times we'll be looking to collaborate and have really sort of develop something together because of the complementary skill sets, for example. And I would say, be solid on your technology when you start to engage with us. If you oversell it, we have to sometimes regroup and really think about, okay, how do we sort of get this to be a successful collaboration? So I think having some realism there, and just an open collaborative mindset with that dose of realism, I think is one of the keys to success.
Just building upon that statement, Jacqui, I think don't be scared of working with a multinational, because I think it does offer huge opportunities. Jacqui alluded to it earlier, the ability for us to rapidly evaluate the performance of a product in multiple geographies, the ability to do it twice a year by going between Southern Hemisphere and Northern Hemisphere organizations is a huge opportunity. But that open collaborative culture and working out, Syngenta really prides itself in its collaboration mindset and wanting to truly roll up its sleeves and working with our partners in order to drive innovation forward, to bring it into the hands of growers is really important. So that open mindset and wanting to work with us, I think, is critically important. That's the opportunity of this challenge, because people submitting things into this are wanting to work with us. So that's what makes this an exciting opportunity for Syngenta.
Well, absolutely. And I think that's all the questions we've had. And I think actually that is a really fantastic sort of theme to begin to wrap up on, actually, is that openness, that collaboration, and of course the excitement around the number of startups we are looking forward to apply for this challenge. So thank you, Jacqui. Thank you, Stuart. Just, did you have any other sort of concluding remarks you wanted to share, or anything else we haven't addressed today?
Oh, thanks for the opportunity. It's been great just to be able to have this dialogue and hopefully inspire some of the audience out there to submit their ideas, because we really are looking forward to some great entries, and can't wait to see when the challenge closes and we get to see the entries. Super excited about that.
No, I agree, and I really want to thank the Rethink team for enabling this. This is a huge opportunity for us as Syngenta, and just to all of the people out there listening who may be interested in submitting. Don't necessarily assume that what your technology won't necessarily fit. We're really open and interested to understand how we can assemble a toolbox of technologies that ends up becoming a solution in the regenerative ag space for the grower.
Fantastic. And, thank you guys. Thanks to Syngenta for setting this exciting challenge and for joining us today to share your ideas and explain so much more about it. And of course, thanks to the 400 of you who've joined us online for today's webinar, and to all the startups, just to remind you that the deadline for submitting your application is August the 13th, and we'd really love to hear from you. All of the applications will be shared with the Syngenta teams, and then 3 from the challenge will be selected to pitch their solution during the live stream of the World Agri-Tech Innovation Summit on September the 28th. It's a fantastic opportunity to increase the visibility of your company and to connect with global players who can help scale your solution. So we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks everyone for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you back online for the summit on September the 28th.